Wait up. Okay, one. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the WiAA project's first webinar. We're so excited because we're going to be talking about a crystal ball in the industry. And guess what? We have a lot of people signing up for once. We are really so excited that we have about 80 registrants today that is going to be joining us. And starting off, we are going to introduce the WiAA project people. Behind me, I have Keates, Ramasamy, as well as Mindy.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, my name is Ramasamy, and I'm Katie.
Yeah. And with us today are our panelists. We are going to be introducing Mr. Saravanan Ramasamy, who is the CEO of Myanmar International Airways and Air KBZ, as well as Jane Bernard Boura, who is the MD of Pan Aviation Malaysia. And we have Thomas Pupp with us, the Business Development Manager of Sterling Global Aviation Logistics, all the way from Frankfurt, Germany. Simon Chee, who is the Career Services Director of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which is based in Asia, Singapore. And of course, our lovely moderator, Sarah Keates, who is the founder of Orchid Insights. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah. Sarah?
Brandon, thank you so very much for that warm introduction, and thank you also to the ladies and gentlemen behind the WiAA project for setting up today's webinar and for inviting me to moderate. I'm really humbled and honoured to be here, so thank you so much. When I saw the topic, I was super intrigued. Of course, the question on everybody's lips all year, and can you believe it's December, by the way, that is, what's going to happen next? And whilst we may not have all the answers, I think we've got some great experts here to try and explore what the situation is right now, what are some of the lessons from 2019, and what could be ahead in the next year to 2 years. So thanks for the introductions already, Brandon, that's wonderful. Just so that our 41 attendees that are so far listening in, just so that they can get a bit of a greater insight into who we have on the panel today, perhaps I'll just ask everyone to introduce themselves in a bit more depth. So Thomas, could you go first? Oh, you're on mute. We need to unmute you.
Sorry, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Thomas. I'm working with Sterling Global Aviation Logistics. I've been with the company for 4 years. I'm based in Frankfurt, and our company is part of the Quick group of companies. We are specialized into specialty and urgent transportation and logistics globally. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for the invitation to the WiAA team, and well, looking forward to this discussion today.
And before we move on, Thomas, how would you describe urgent transportation?
Well, more into, well, it depends on the industry you deal with, but as far as aviation is concerned, it's more about same day regionally, or next day if you talk about intercontinental transportation.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Can't wait to hear more. And Jean Bernard or JB, if we may call you that.
That's perfect. Yes. Well, I have an engineering and flying background. I've been involved in aviation for close to 30 years now. I've been working with manufacturers for a bit more than 15 years, primarily Dassault Aviation, where I created the Falcon Operational Support Organization for the company. And I moved in Asia in 2011, where I had some C-level responsibilities in a conglomerate of companies providing aviation services in Southeast Asia. And then in 2015, I created Pan Aviation. And I will provide a bit more in-depth information regarding the company during the presentation.
Wonderful. Welcome, JB. Thank you so much for joining us. Saravanan, welcome.
Hi. Very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saravanan. You can call me Sarah, but not Sarah. Been involved in the aviation industry for the past 16 years, mainly involved in airlines in Southeast Asia, Started with Malaysian Airlines, AirAsia, Malindo, and now I'm based in Yangon, leading 2 airlines, namely Myanmar Airways International and Keates. Thanks, and I'm very glad to be here.
Wonderful, welcome. Can't wait to discuss further with you. And Simon.
Morning, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I think I'm the only non-aviators here as a panelist. I'm with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Asia, based in Singapore for the past 5 years. And as my title implies, I'm the career services person here. So keep the thing short. I'm actually the link between the school, the student, the alumni, and the company itself. So it's our 10th year here in Singapore. We have graduated close to 1,000 students in Singapore, undergraduate and postgraduate and PhD students. And yeah, it's really a pleasure to be here, and hopefully can share some insights on what's going to happen in aviation in the next 5 to 10 years time. Thanks.
Simon, it's really wonderful to have you here, and I know that your finger's really on the pulse in terms of being plugged into both commercial and business aviation and how you can help your students get kind of real life hands-on experience. And to some extent, the topic of today's session is super relevant to you in terms of the students that you must be counseling and supporting on a daily basis. Before we kind of go into the presentations, I'm sort of interested to know, are your students feeling nervous? Are they feeling like everything's going to be okay? Are you getting lots of questions at the moment?
I think the unique part of our student that differentiate them with other universities is they really have the passion for aviation. So the time is difficult, and I think it's our job now to as an educator, as a staff of Embry-Riddle, to actually to hold their hands and to make sure that the passion they have is always burning. Even after they graduate, they may not find the job that they want, but we will actually advise and help them to actually pivot to another industry. And as most of you know, aviation is a cyclical industry. So when it's down, it's down. When it's up, it increases exponentially. So the students will actually need the knowledge and that push from behind to actually to survive this storm and to actually ride the next wave of the aviation industry itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps we need their sort of visionary next generation viewpoint as well to bring some fresh ideas about how we can all evolve and survive this wave and move into the future as well. So very much looking forward to discussing that a bit later. I know that we have some great content to share before we dive into some questions and some back and forth. So Sarah, is it okay to come to you first for your video, please?
Great. Well, just before I start the video and the presentation, when I first was roped into this webinar, thanks to JB, the title called the WiAA project, Women in Aviation Asia. So, and then the topic that was given to me is commercial travel. So I'll be talking about 2 main items, basically women in aviation in the context of Myanmar Airways International, where I'll be playing a video clip. And secondly, I'll be bringing through commercial travel or aviation in general, how we are going through these unprecedented times. So if you allow me, the video clip will take about 5 minutes. Let me just play that.
Perfect, thank you.
Hope everyone can see this. All right, hope you enjoyed the short video clip. I think basically I wanted to play the clip to show how Myanmar Airways International and Air KBZ is promoting women participation in the aviation industry. So we may have heard women pilot, women FOs, but very rarely we hear women engineers. So those are our engineering students, graduates, who are undergoing some training in the engineering and maintenance field. Now,
yeah, that's very interesting to see. What's the landscape like in Myanmar at present for young girls and women interested in entering careers in aviation?
I think if you look at, there are two parts. One, on the engineering side, there are very less participation of women, and this is how we are encouraging. We have 4 first officers, and hopefully very soon we'll have our first women pilot. But if you look at the office side on the commercial and business support area, for example, if I take my commercial team, out of 70 staff, 68 are women, and only 2 male. So it's very lopsided. We are trying to balance it. All right. That's the first portion of my presentation. Just wanted to showcase how we are promoting women participation in the aviation landscape, specifically on the engineering and flight operations. So if I can move on to say, okay, how are we surviving through this unprecedented time? Before I bore you with some slides, let me tell you in a nutshell, what is aviation going through? We have gone backwards by 30 years. Well, I've not been in the aviation the last 30 years, but what I was told, this was the situation when we were back 30 years ago. So if you are a person in Yangon wanting to travel to London, for example, it could be as easy as catching a flight to Bangkok and getting a onward flight to London. But today, one has got to plan and has got to undergo various health checks, various government restrictions and approvals, and one will take at least 35 hours to reach London from Yangon. So this is how we are. Yesterday I was in IATA AGM, and they've said that if they made a good comparison, during 9/11 attack, the net margin of airlines went down to -3. And guess what? During COVID-19, the net margin has gone down to -36. So it's unprecedented. More and more airlines will go bust because they will no longer be able to sustain this. Even as I speak, the domestic aircrafts, 8 aircrafts, are just lying in the tarmac, not knowing where to fly because there's a temporary government suspension on domestic flights. On the international flight, I've never gone through this. So every day is a challenge. If I compare where during pre-COVID era, and every day I wake up, I know that, I have 2 flights to KL, 2 flights to Singapore, and 1 flight to Bangkok. When I wake up today, I don't know where I'm flying. So I'll be dependent on charter requests. We are managing schedule on a daily basis. We have done some unthinkable routes all the way from Baghdad to Fiji, 42-hour flight with 4 stops. We are doing charter flights. We have never thought of that we will be carrying cargo on cabin seats. We are doing that. We never thought that we will be just flying 1 passenger on a charter basis to Jakarta. We are doing that. And every day is a survival. So that is how the aviation industry has been impacted by COVID. If you go to Yangon Airport, it's disastrous. There's no shops open, no passengers can be seen unless they're traveling. And I hope that this will come to an end very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds as if you have a very flexible, agile business model that enables you to respond quite quickly to what's happening on a daily basis, which of course for so many companies isn't practical. And as you said, very sadly, that leads to companies going under, and that's a great concern. But moving forward, I think a lot of the concern is that lots of us can have a stiff upper lip and be practical and be flexible for a finite period. But the question is, how long could that last? So whilst, again, you don't have a crystal ball and this might be a difficult question, how long do you think you can continue sort of living day by day with the inability to plan? Could this go on another year, let's say, or what are you thinking?
I think before I answer the question, let me just bring back, how long have we been doing this? We have been surviving on this mode from March onwards. So it's a good 6 months or more than that. I've been physically here for the last 6 months. And I think sooner or later, everyone will get exhausted, because the effort that is being put in to launch one route, one flight is enormous, with the approvals. And I had flights taking off and returning to base because the destination country didn't allow landing, didn't give us a landing permit. So we have those ridiculous moments. And to answer your question, how long can we go? It really depends how much cash we have. So operation-wise, I think we can proceed. We can carry on like this for at least another 6 to 1 year. But the problem is, how long can we sustain the loss? So today, the way we operate is, as long as we cover our variable costs, we fly. But we are not covering our fixed costs. So sooner or later, creditors, especially the lessors, will be on our back. And it's a chain reaction. It depends on how long they can sustain. That enables us to sustain. So every day I've been getting calls from lessors demanding payments. So now it's a time where it reflects true partnership, where we openly share the financials, openly say this is how we come up with payment plans and cooperate. So it is challenging.
Thank you so much for being so candid there. And JB, would you echo some of those sentiments? Have things been erratic and chaotic? I mean, perhaps that's an obvious question, but how has it impacted you guys?
Well, as far as business aviation is concerned, I think we've been pretty much lucky. I really pity my friend Sarah going through such difficult times. Business aviation has been doing quite well. I have a presentation that I don't know. Is it the time to share the presentation?
That would be perfect if you're ready.
Yeah. Can you see my slides? Yeah. Can you see the slides now?
Yes. All good.
Yes. Okay. Good. So, well, first of all, let me share with you a little bit of background of Pan Aviation. As I said, we are a pretty new company. We were created in 2015. We have 6 business lines. We provide consulting and project management, business restructuring, M&As, refinancing, aircraft refinancing, this kind of activities. We're still doing aircraft sales and helicopter sales. We have a number of deals in the pipelines at the moment. We provide charter. We also bridge the gap between aviation projects and investors. We sell aircraft management services in the region. I've put about 14 private jets in operation since 2011. We still have 6 private jets in operation in Vietnam, in Thailand, and in Malaysia now. And we are growing our UAV operation. As far as UAV is concerned, we are actually launching the biggest cargo drone in the world. That's what you have in the background. We started the assembly of the first prototype a few months ago, and we believe it's a natural evolution of the business industry, as drone by nature is a social distancing tool. But that's for another topic, another time. In terms of private aviation, so first of all, what is private aviation? Private aviation is this segment which doesn't belong to military, doesn't belong to commercial, and doesn't belong to aviation. This is how usually I define it. It's a business tool primarily. A lot of people think it's a toy for jet setters, but the reality is it's primarily a business tool. It represents quite a number of aircraft. If you take the small aircraft, including the turboprop and the business jets themselves and helicopters, that's about 30,000 aircraft around the world, compared to about 26,000 commercial aircraft pre-COVID time. It includes helicopters, it includes jet engine aircraft and turboprop. To see what is the effect of COVID on the business aviation, you need to look at what are the primary drivers of the industries. And these drivers are primarily the business aviation aircraft sales and the charter. The byproduct of these are membership programs, fractional ownership programs, and so on. But the primary factors are aircraft sales and charter. And I suggest we go through that as far as jet engine aircraft are concerned. In the business aviation community, you have a number of big players in terms of manufacturers. You have Bombardier, you have Dassault, you have Gulfstream, Embraer, Cirrus, Honda, Pilatus, Cessna. These are the main manufacturers. This graph here presents the sales per manufacturer, the first half of 2019, and is the same in 2020. What you can see here is that overall, you have a bit of decrease, but a lot of manufacturers actually have the same, have comparable numbers. If you look at, for instance, Gulfstream, 62 aircraft versus 54. If you take Dassault, for instance, 17 against 16 in 2020. So basically, what you can see is, despite there is a decrease in the number of sales, we can see that the pandemic hasn't killed the industry from a sales perspective. And at least if you compare it to commercial aircraft, we are absolutely not comparable to the disaster that the commercial aviation is going through at the moment. And that's also explained why there are still a good perspective on growth of the industry, and in terms of both value of aircraft and percentage of aircraft. Now, if you look at the charter market, a few parameters. The first one is, if you look at the installed base of charter aircraft in Asia, for instance, compared between 2018 and 2020, you don't have that much of a reduction in the number of aircraft. You still have a number of aircraft available for charter market. The main decrease is actually China, and the decrease on the Chinese market had started actually way before COVID. So in terms of number of aircraft available for the charter market, not so much of an impact from a COVID perspective. From a charter flight hours, though, there is a massive decrease. This is the number in 2019, and this is the green curve is the number of 2020. So obviously, there has been a decrease in the number of charter flight due to the pandemic. But what is interesting is to look at why there has been such a decrease in the charter activity. And recently there was a survey posted among the regional operators, and there is a bit of interesting trend. Basically, the blue values are the domestic flight, the yellow values are the international flight. And what you can see is that 60% of the operators have seen an increase in the number of charter flight requests. 60% for domestic flight, 65% for international flight. However, and the price as well have been going through some increase. 40% of the operators have seen an increase in domestic charter flight price, and 85% of the operators have seen an increase in the international flight prices. But the main reason why there is a lack or a drop in the activity is not because there is a lack of demand, is because there is so many restrictions within each particular country and within each country that the flight cannot happen. But interestingly enough, the COVID has actually created a situation where there has been an increase in the demand of charter flight. And that's a very interesting trend. What is interesting as well is that even though there has been a decrease in the charter activity, there is no stop in the charter activity. We keep on flying. Contrary to commercial airlines. Some commercial airlines, they have zero flight. Where just look at the number of airports where you have aircraft sitting on the ground doing nothing. There is absolutely no flight. In case of business aviation, we keep on flying. Sometimes at low level. Overall, the industry can see that we are flying at about 30% of 2019 activity, but we still fly. And that's also is a very interesting trend. So why are we still operating? And I think this is an interesting question to look at in terms of a possible paradigm shift. One reason is because the industry as a whole has been reacting and adapting very fast to the change or to the new situation. Air traffic control, for instance, in terms of flight planning, we had to plan our flight differently. We had to change the way we were planning our diversion because as Sarah said, sometimes you start a flight, but you're not very sure you're going to go to destination because you may not have, because the right or the rules may have changed, preventing you from landing at your destination while you are flying. So we had to change our diversion policies. And this has helped recovering a bit of flexibility. There has been change in the regulation, and that's also there has been a number of new rules, particularly on the US, but the European rules have changed as well. And of course, we have implemented a lot of new procedures, new SOPs. You can see a number of videos where you see crews wearing masks and sanitizing the cabin of the aircraft and so on. So we have been taking a lot of measures to protect the health of our crews and passengers. That's one reason. Now, there is another reason, which is linked to the fundamental reasons why we have business aviation. And that's why it's important to consider business aviation as a tool and not so much as a toy. There are four primary reasons why people fly business aviation or business aircraft. The main reason is because they fly when they want, when they need it. They fly where they need it, they fly how they prefer it, and they fly with whom they want to in the cabin. And this, the users of private aviation ultimately enjoy 9, 10, 12 different characteristics. First, they don't waste time. They are in control of their schedule. They can travel in whole confidentiality. They fly in comfort, of course. They have good food on board. This is particularly important for Asian customers. They enjoy ultimate privacy and safety and health, good health and security on board. Of course, they can fly closer to the final destination. They have a faster trip because they are less bothered by traffic en route and so on, and they spend less time away from home. But please keep in mind these two values here, the ultimate privacy and the safety and health, which are key reasons why before COVID, people were flying. Now, what is interesting is that there has been a few surveys during COVID as to why people keep flying. And one thing that appeared is that now they prioritize safety over cost. And that's an interesting trend, particularly in Asia. We have been involved in a number of deals where we were trying to convince people that obviously had the wealth to buy a private jet or had the wealth to afford a charter flight. But you know, when it takes time to earn a penny, you spend this penny very carefully. And sometimes we were facing difficulties to convince people to come on board a private jet and really appreciate the convenience of this business tool. But now safety is more important than cost. And the result is that during this period of COVID, we've seen a number of new customers. And that's one of the reasons why we can explain the increase in the number of charter flight requests, is because we had now access to a lot of customers that were, they were never on our radar before. We were never in contact with them. So of course, we have also a lot of requests coming from people that can't afford private jet. But we also now have an increase in the available market for both aircraft sales and charter flight. And what is interesting is that one of the biggest provider of charter flight in the business aviation community have seen that 79% of the ultra high net worth individuals are even more inclined to book travel flights with a private jet, which means that not only there is a new base of customer, but the existing base of customer is becoming now even more loyal to private aviation, more attracted by private aviation. And that's definitely a good sign. The consequence is now safety, health, and ultimate privacy are becoming the most important factors for people to enjoy private aviation. And I think that ultimately, the reason why business aviation is now still surviving is because the value proposition of the business aviation community and industry is now matching even more the change in the social values of the customer base. So in a way, this looks pretty positive for the future. Of course, business aviation has been involved in different other segments that has shed a different light on business aviation, not so much a jet setter tool, but more a useful tool also for the community. And business aviation has been involved in a number of humanitarian flights during COVID-19. So a lot of people also have changed their perception on the industry, on the private jet. And this is reassuring because, you know, when a person wants to enjoy private jet, there is a little bit of concern that they could be seen, they want to be seen as a wealthy and successful business entrepreneur, but they also need confidentiality and they don't want to be seen as somebody spending the money out of the window just like crazy. And the perception, the humanitarian support image that private aviation has been developing even more during COVID is helping these potential customers to make the decision. So the conclusion is basically the business aviation is going through tough time, of course. just like any of the aviation sector, but not probably as much as the other sectors, and commercial aviation particularly. The industry has been able to adapt quickly, has proven how flexible the service can be to the different users, whether you are an aircraft owner or a charterer. And it's most importantly, it's proven to be safe. You have hardly heard about any COVID cases on private jet or commercial jet for that matter. So it's a very good sign. Just on a bit of a number, to hopefully to give some hope. We have some aircraft operated in Vietnam, and these aircraft used to fly a lot domestically and internationally. But during the COVID time, if I look at the numbers over the last week, just 7 days, we flew close to 39 flights in 1 week, which is close to twice the number of flights we used to fly before COVID at the same period. So hopefully things will be looking good for business aviation going forward.
That's super interesting. Thank you so much, JB. I think a lot of us are very grateful that there's a greater awareness and understanding of business aviation as a tool, not just a business tool, of course, but the movement of goods, people, repatriation, getting lots of students and kids back home at the start of the year, and humanitarian flights and so on and so forth. So I think that greater awareness has been wonderful, a bit of a silver lining from this year. One of the questions that I've often asked myself is this year, that some of those first-time users of the market, you know, are they going to stay? But it sounds like from those numbers that you've shared about last week of those movements, it sounds like that they might be regular users now of business aviation. Would you say that's accurate?
It is accurate. Obviously, there are differences from one country to another because the COVID situation might be different in Vietnam, in Thailand, in Malaysia. Rules and restrictions are also different. The positive sign is that there is a stronger and larger appreciation of the business aviation aircraft as a tool to provide safe and healthy transportation for business purposes. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is a trend that will keep on going even after COVID, and this trend will benefit the industry. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the market, whether as a user of a charter flight or as a potential aircraft buyer, I think that these people values are changing as well. They put more emphasis on health and safety, and this is what they can find in business aviation, and this will continue. So it looks good.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think 2020 has been a really big year for reflection across all industries, and then just generally. So if we were to look at the philosophy and psychology of 2020, I think a lot of people have reassessed their values, and perhaps that's no bad thing. And I know that you also deal with UAVs, and you've got that very impressive drone just over your left shoulder over there. But I think I'm going to come to Thomas and have a chat about logistics and how that plays into the mix here, basically. And I suppose, and I know you have some slides to share, but my first question is, do you think there's greater awareness of your piece of the puzzle and how that plays into the movement of goods and people and essential movements of items around the world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, logistics has been a key topic this year. I mean, against all expectations, and this is going to be an ongoing topic next year, even more as the vaccine, you know, is going to be distributed globally. And as long as the restrictions remain, you know, there will be a bottleneck overall as far as capacities, freight capacities are concerned, you know. So definitely there is logistics this year is something that everybody is really aware of. A lot of people who didn't know, how important it is, got aware of that, as the supply chain completely broke down back in March. Things are much better now, but still it's a very difficult, it's a very difficult balance to find overall on the market now. So I will share the screen because we only have 10 minutes remaining officially. So I will make it a little bit shorter. I already give you guys a short input about who we are and what we stand for. We have been acquired by the Kuehne+Nagel Group a year ago, and basically the Quick Group of companies has two different core businesses. One of them is aviation with Sterling, and the other one is healthcare and life science. And this is what our colleagues from Quickstart and Quick Healthcare are dealing with every day. And these guys have been really busy, as you can imagine, with all the clinical trials, etc. On the Sterling side, we are supporting the entire industry. So Jean-Bernard might know us from the private aviation segment. We support commercial industry, MROs, OEMs, etc., etc. So we do all type of urgent transportation, including DG and large bulky items. That's it in a nutshell about who we are. I had a slide about the female empowerment in the company, because this is the key topic of the webinar today. So when the company was founded 40 years ago, our founder knew that basically it needs some strong female leaders, to lead a company. And this is something that has been in our DNA up to now, as our CEO, Dominique Bischoff-Brown, is a woman. Our head of HR is a female. Our head of marketing, Marie Vigliaro, is a woman. Head of CRM, head of solutions team. So this is something which is really part of our DNA. On the European and Asian sales side, we also have two power women, as I call that. We have Karin and Thais. Karin is based in London, and she's been in the company for almost 15 years. She's very active in Women in Corporate Aviation as a director, international director. And Thais has been in the company for 3 years. She started for us in London and moved to Singapore a year and a half ago. She was promoted over there. She speaks Chinese, Italian, Portuguese, and English. And of course, she's part of Women in Corporation in Asia. So that's in a nutshell the introduction on about our company and the influence of women overall historically. And I will now move on to the next slide. Wait. Yeah, which is about supply chain overall pre and post-COVID. So I've got two slides, and first of all, the pre-COVID. What was the situation until March last year? We were in a situation where over the last years, we had a permanent production ramp up. All the OEMs were busy basically answering the needs of the new aircraft generations with the new engines for the MAX and the Neos. We had wide bodies, the 787s and 37s, which were being ramped up. We had the A220 and so on. As a result of that, the OEMs were focusing on production supply. The aftermarket was basically heating up, especially for high-value components, which sometimes had a lead time up to 6 months. And basically, if there was some unpredicted maintenance, some operators had a hard time getting the parts. All the more so since the USM market was being basically scarce as well due to the lack of aircraft available for tear down. That was due to basically peak demand on the passenger side, resulting in high flight activities on the commercial side. And the issues that happened on the 737 MAX and the 787, so all these technical issues resulted in a higher demand for wet lease operations, especially on the 73s. Operators who had ordered those aircraft but couldn't operate them have been delaying basically the retirement of their existing aircraft. So or the entire, let's say, industry was heating up as far as the aircraft availability was concerned. Along with that, we had a lack of qualified staff. MROs had a peak demand and couldn't find the engineers, especially B2 engineers. Same on the manufacturer side. And the crew were also an issue, whether pilot, cabin crew, and even the logistics side were deeply impacted because demand was over the supply of staff. And last but not least, one word about the innovation. That was a buzzword, but people didn't have time to focus on it, especially in mid-sized companies, because they were too busy with the daily business. And where are we now? Since March, we're in a totally different situation where, especially on the commercial manufacturing side, everything has been, breaking down. The production rate have been slowed down. It was even interrupted for a while. A lot of tier 1, let's say T2 and T3 suppliers I think having a hard time to survive, and the big OEMs have to make sure that basically they are being supplied in due time and manner. On the other hand, everybody, including the MRO, have to make sure that the capacities, which were available on the pre-COVID level, are maintained to be able to rebound as soon as the market recovers. Competitiveness is also a key topic, as airlines will come really affected out of the crisis with cost-saving measure. They will put these requirements onto the OEMs, onto the manufacturers, and of course that's going to be like an effect on the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So everybody can expect a further vertical integration on the tier 2, tier 3 supplier side. And of course, there will be new entrants to the market. For instance, Comac in China, which will probably take advantage of the situation to basically increase its market share, at least on the domestic side. Then we have the operational excellence, which has always been a key in the industry, but which will become even more important. So 0 defects, 0 delays, 0 missing parts. QA will be even more important. Digitization of all the work streams will be required, and probably a lot of paperwork will be increasingly, let's say, moving on a digital way. Innovation is the key. I talked about digitization already. This is what everybody is working on now to reduce costs, to reduce the manpower, etc. Innovation as far as CO2 neutrality is concerned, to basically reach the point in 10, 15 years from now where we will most probably get a CO2 neutral aircraft. And so that leads us to the last point about sustainability. Sustainability as far as CO2 emissions are concerned, but not only that, we are talking about compliance, ethics, and human rights, which are the key, increasing a key topic, especially on the big OEM side. And I assume, talking about human rights, equal opportunities between male and females is basically connected to that as well. So basically, the circle is closed, and my presentation is over. So if you have any further questions, I'm open.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Yeah?
I feel like you need it. Feel like you need an extra gold medal there for going at speed.
No.
So that was exceptional. And with everybody's permission, and please may I ask forgiveness, perhaps we'll go over a few minutes because I think we still have a bit more to chat about. Is everyone all right to hang on a few more minutes? We're at 4:57 right now. Of course, if you're not able to, then do drop off. But thank you so much for that, Thomas. I think I think you raise a really good point that the really, and it's not just buzzwords, but I think really important topics for if we're thinking about crystal ball and we're thinking about the future. The things that are going to play into that are going to be sustainability and innovation and having gender parity, which means that we're going to have a greater pool of talent to call upon for all of the solutions and all of the issues that we have. It's really good to know that Sterling has so many women in leadership, so bravo for that. Is that an active sort of campaign that you have in HR, or was that just happenstance? Is this something you're actively pushing? Can you share a bit about that?
Well, I think since our CEO has been in its position for years and years and years, and she's been there almost since the beginning. I think it's been part of it, as I said, part of a DNA, and since historically our head of HR is a female. Basically, we don't need to campaign about it. It's just obvious, it's automated, and it's just normal to have, there is no issue whether it's a female or a male, it's just based on the capability, and
right.
yeah.
Yep. Talent-based, merit-based,
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
as it should be. We do have a question in the Q&A box, and I'll come back to that shortly, but I'd like to come to Simon. Simon, obviously you're at ERAU, and I was interviewing Shyster White, who I'm sure you're familiar with, the first Afghan American pilot to fly solo around the world, and she leads Dream Soar, which is a non-profit that encourages and promotes women and girls into careers and education in STEM, and she phrased it in a really interesting and compelling way, which is that, as economies, countries, communities, societies are missing so much opportunity by not calling upon the talent of half of the population. And of course, it's not, the story is not quite that bleak in many countries around the world, but certainly in some markets and in some countries around the world, women and girls don't have opportunities in STEM. She also shared an interesting statistics that over the course of her time campaigning with ERAU, she saw, or rather the school saw a 40% increase in women and girls joining the program. I'm interested to know if that's a statistic that you've seen in Singapore and across Asia. Have you seen more girls interested?
Yes, definitely. Over the past few years, there's a lot of movement to actually push for females to join aviation, because as you all know, aviation is more toward a bias of for males. So over the years, we have been a lot of action has been done, like women in aviation, women in corporate aviation. All this actually creates a lot of awareness that to encourage female students to actually take up aeronautics or business in aviation degree program with us. And over the years, yes, definitely there's an increase. I would say that it actually raises from 5 years ago, maybe 20%, yeah, maybe around 30 to 40% as of this year. But due to COVID, a lot of female international students are not able to actually join us. If this pandemic is over, I would say probably maybe we can, hopefully on the bright side, we can get 50-50, maybe in the next few years' time, probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What do you think are some of the limiting factors, I suppose, to girls joining careers in aviation?
I would say it's a culture thing. It's really a culture thing. In Singapore itself, we are a multiracial society. So I think most of the family are very open-minded, especially with dealing with the Gen Y and Gen X, Gen Y and Gen Z. The kids, the students are allowed to do whatever they want, because I have students joining me saying that, female students joining me saying that they want to be engineers, they want to be technician, and they're not shy about it. So it's really great. It's really great, because I myself, I'm a father of two, so I have a daughter, I have a son. So I really want my daughter to actually probably outshine my son in her career, because there's a lot of untouched capabilities that that females they can explore, and they can really be as good as males in the aviation industry for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly preparing and training for a career in aviation is a very expensive undertaking. And I'm interested to know, perhaps you can or can't share this, but has COVID impacted the number of scholarships that are available?
It did impact, but it didn't. It's not the bad way. It actually encouraged us to actually issue out more scholarship for the students, because we ourselves know that the students are going through bad time. Their parents are going through that bad time. A lot of our alumni that is made redundant due to this COVID situation. Because we wanted to actually make use of this time, this spare time that they have to actually come back to us to actually further their studies and to tie off this time. And hopefully when they graduate, this thing is over just in time. Yeah. So Yeah, we are actually giving out more scholarship and different type of scholarship, that returning Eagle scholarship. I think I had just have a meeting this morning. I think the senior management come out with another COVID scholarship that is going to issue out to the students, for local students and international students.
Wonderful. And I've got a question for you now that I'd actually like to ask for everybody as well. You know, do we think that a career in aviation is still attractive to the next generation? I mean, obviously it's always been so alluring and aspirational, and something that so many boys and girls have aspired to do since a young age, and we all know that. Do you think that it's lost any of its shine this year? I mean, you're probably the best person to ask, because you're on the front lines, as it were, with the young ones. What would you say?
Looking at the enrollment this year, I would say basically there is not much change in the interest for aviators. I would say the only thing that's affected is the foreign students that we have. So for current situation, there's no foreign students. But for local students, I would say that the passion of real aviators is still there, because we have not seen the drop in numbers. Numbers are still maintaining, dropped by a little bit, but yes, it's still very, I think I would say the student is very optimistic of the industry, because before the COVID situation, I think Singapore is putting a lot of emphasis onto the aviation side. I to say the Seletar Aerospace Park, even for Terminal 5, all those currently a lot of things are put on hold. But you can really see the Singapore government actually puts a lot of emphasis, a lot of different ideas to actually keep this industry going. Let's say, for example, the travel bubble with Hong Kong, even to the catered meals at A330, and also I think recently they just converted the whole Terminal 5 to like an amusement park. As you can see, I think a lot of citizens of Singapore, a lot of permanent residents in Singapore, they can actually see that a lot of emphasis, a lot of actions, and a lot of things have been pumped into the aviation industry. And when this thing is over, they are really rest assured that this industry will really bump up to the sky for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such a valid point. I mean, the support of the government is so fundamental, and I think Singapore has always historically done a very good job of that. So I mean, it's very good to see that continue to the grassroots and down to the student level. That's wonderful. And since you've mentioned the bubble, I actually was planning to travel and visit Singapore, but it's been delayed, so I won't be leaving Hong Kong anytime soon. But it does bring me nicely onto my to a question that's been asked to Sarah. How realistic do you think any travel bubbles are, and you know, can they ever work? Putting into perspective how prolonged this pandemic has become.
Okay, so I think travel bubble in general works. What we need is for the various countries to do away with the quarantine requirement and enforce stricter health checks. Now, the IATA move of introducing travel pass is a good move, where IATA with the ICAO is actually encouraging governments to do away with the quarantine. Make the health check mandatory and get people's confidence in traveling. And that's the only way where commercial airline will survive. So that will enable airlines to move from a survival to a recovery mode.
And when do you think this could start happening in a cohesive way across the region?
I think my personal opinion is it will begin as soon as people have confidence over the vaccine. So the first precursor is a vaccine, and most importantly is for the travelers to have confidence over the vaccine and the distribution of the vaccine. So the saying is that I won't be safe unless you are safe. It need to be drilled down to everyone, right? So this is not my issue or your issue, is our issue. In order for me to be safe, you need to be safe. Let's build confidence over the vaccine, which we are really seeing at the light of the end of the tunnel. Let's get the government to cohesively open up the borders with checks, with travel pass, or whatever you can call it, and sort of enlarge the travel bubbles. And I think the impediment, this is my personal view, the impediment here is the quarantine requirements. So if I were to travel to Malaysia and come back, I need to be quarantined for almost a month and a half at both ends. So that just kills the appetite to undertake the travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much do you think there's enough cooperation and enough of a cohesive effort across the region among all the various stakeholders? I mean, we've been talking about this, I know, for 11 months, but do we think that this is coming together now?
Yes, progressively we are seeing. So it will be done in a cluster of countries. For example, this is where ASEAN can come in and play a very important role in terms of coordinating the movement within a few countries. And then it can be enlarged. So you can see more bilateral moving into multilateral relationship between countries.
Wonderful. I think we're getting slightly short on time, and I've got lots more questions, but perhaps we'll end on the most difficult but pressing question, which is the crystal ball. So JB, I'll come to you first of all. You're very optimistic in your presentation, which is wonderful, and speaking on behalf of the business aviation industry as a whole, I suppose, in the format we're in today. What do you think Q1, Q2, and perhaps the latter end of last year is going to look like? Next year, sorry.
Well, I think that there will be a number, well, at least for Asia, there will be a number of countries that will progressively allow at least domestic operation. And obviously, as soon as there is sign of vaccines, or hopefully there is a critical mass of countries that can go out of the COVID situation for whatever reasons, and as soon as we have green lanes concept expanding in Asia, we will most probably see a further increase in the business aviation activity, starting with flight first, whether on a flight or charter flight, and most probably followed by an increase in aircraft sales. How soon will that come? I'm not sure. I think it's not going to be Q1 next year. I think it's going to take possibly another quarter. So hopefully around Q2, Q3, we could see a further increase in our industry drivers.
And regionally, do you think Asia is quite well placed to recover, first, or will it be in line with Europe and the US? Are we likely to be a bit later? What do you think?
I think Asia will be most probably among the first area to recover. For one reason, I'm French, as you can hear, although I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. And I think Asians are more health conscious and disciplined than a lot of European countries. I'm talking about individual behaviors. And the result is that, yes, compliance is I think it's easier to be implemented in Asian countries. And the result is that there is a better confinement of the issue and the pandemic in Asian countries. This will help, definitely.
Wonderful. Thomas, what do you think next year is going to look like?
Well, I pretty much agree with Jean-Bernard, but looking at the commercial activities, I think Q2 will be too early. I think it's going to be rather Q3, Q4 next year, depending how the vaccination campaigns run. From my perspective, they're going to be regional recoveries first, like Asia, Europe, and well, the Americas is a little bit of a different story, but basically, there will be first a recovery of the regional travel before long-haul travel resumes. So basically, there will definitely be some significant recovery on the regional side, on the regional flights from Q2, Q3 next year. But long-haul, I anticipate, will only really bounce back in 2022.
Goodness, deep breaths, everybody. Simon, I'm interested to know, for you next year, is there going to be any COVID-related content added to the curriculum? Is it something that you guys are going to have to adapt to because it's just so part of the landscape now?
Definitely, because education is something that is always evolving. Let's say, for example, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical Asia, we're always coming out with new programs like data analysis and some of the new programs that is up to the trend. So yeah, we actually in the midst of not really COVID related, but in terms of difficult times, what are the options that actually the graduates can take? And for me myself is as an educator, I was also bring across the point to the students that they need to actually be flexible, adaptive, and actually pivot whenever they are needed. Yeah. So if you look at past cases like SARS or even the 2008 financial crisis, it hits the aviation economy very hard, really hard, like close to 5 to 6 billion losses for that short time frame. But as I mentioned just now, aviation is cyclical. So when it actually picks up, it's going to be really fast. So to all the audience here, I would say that just ask yourself one question. When the industry picks up, maybe Q3 or Q4 next year, are you up to it to actually ride the next wave with the aviation industry? How are you going to prepare yourself and equip yourself to take the next wave for the aviation industry? Yeah, that's my question for you.
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful point to finish on. And now is the time to get ready, isn't it? And it's a bit of a nail biter waiting, but yeah, absolutely get prepared for the next wave of movement. I'm very mindful of time. We've gone about 15 minutes over, but in total, I think we're just around about an hour. I'd like to thank everybody for joining today and for sharing such wonderful insight from your respective areas of expertise. There's so much more that we could discuss, of course, but I think we need to be respectful of everybody's time. Before we close up, may I ask, gentlemen, is there anything that you wish to add? All right then, so that just leaves me to thank the WiAA project sincerely for inviting us all to come and share some thoughts and ideas today. You know, none of us have a crystal ball, and all we can do is you know, focus on the opportunities that lie ahead, and I think we've had a good go at that today. So thank you for inviting us to come along, and thank you to the 63 people that have joined. Quick question, gentlemen, will your content be available to the audience after today's talk? Can we make that available to everybody that's signed in? All right, super. So we'll liaise with the WiAA team to do that, and I'll hand back to Brandon now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. We're so happy that all of you are enjoying yourselves and contributing content that is really relevant and you know, I can see that a lot of Q&A and questions being asked, and some of us are being texted to ask if there's a second session. We hope to get the second webinar coming soon. Thank you to Saravanan, Simon, JB, Thomas, and the rest of the group. On behalf of WiAA Project, we'd like to say a lot of appreciation, and we hope that we could have another crystal ball very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for having us. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Just for the information of the attendees, the video will be uploaded to YouTube, and the content will be placing onto the WiAAproject.com. So for those of you who want to look back at the slides as well as the video, it will be made available very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Stay safe.